The Man from Toronto is a Netflix project streaming on Netflix right now, and it follows the story of an ordinary guy from New York who's mistaken for the world's most deadliest assassin, the Man from Toronto. Welcome back to the channel, guys. Thank you so much for clicking this video. I really do appreciate it. This movie is a film that I caught wind of mostly on social media. So I watched the trailer and I thought, oh, okay, this has potential. Netflix is more of a hit and miss with me. You know, sometimes they'll bring out a movie that's just a complete waste. And other times they'll be like, okay, yeah, this movie was okay. There's one movie that I watched a few weeks back or a few months back that I forgot the name of. And I thought, okay, this had potential, and it was only, that's all I could say. So yeah, Netflix has a tendency to do that. But, you know, they're not a total loss. But was The Man from Toronto worth it? Was this ranked high on my action list? Was this actually worth the time? Let's find out and start with the positives for The Man from Toronto. I gotta say, the film stars Woody Harrelson and Kevin Hart. Not bad. Though it's not as good as The Hitman's Bodyguards with Reynolds and Jackson. The film stars for this was actually pretty good. I got a few chuckles out of Kevin Hart. With, you know, we've already adapted to the type of humor, his type of comedy style. So you get that here. You get nothing less, nothing more. You know, their chemistry was cool. Again, not as good as Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson, but you get some cool moments here. You know, I got some chuckles out of some of them, especially Kevin Hart. Like I said, Kevin Hart, we all know his brand of comedy. So it's no surprise there. You get about the same level of comedy from him here as you do with anything else. His brand of humor just wasn't lost here. Like I said, I usually get a few chuckles out of him. And Woody Harrelson, he's pretty much the same here. Like in Zombieland, he's the toughest. He's more serious. But with a little slipper of comedy. But you don't get as much comedy out of him as you do with Kevin Hart, naturally. But he plays his own. And I honestly gotta say, the look and feel of this movie was pretty slick. It was pretty cool. It was very fancy. You definitely get assured the whole accuracy of how this film looked. It was very slick. It's very fancy. It's just the way the lighting was. It's just nothing short of what you see in any action movie, especially of this magnitude. It's just very stylistic. I'll just leave it at that. And that all goes to Patrick Hughes, which a lot of his movies are very stylistic, especially if you look at Expendables 3 and the Hitman's Bodyguard series. You see the level of stylistic action and just the way his movies are always lit up. You get nothing short here. You get about the same here. He is by far one of my favorite directors. I put him on a pedestal along with so many other directors I'm not going to mention here, but Patrick Hughes, he's held up in my book as one of my favorite action directors. Though not the strongest in the story department, which I'll get into later, he definitely knows action. He definitely, like, especially when it happens, especially with this film, definitely does have a stylistic look. And that's what I like about Patrick Hughes. Sometimes, especially with the Hitman's Bodyguard movies, he knows style and action. Which, speaking of, I know I've been rambling about this for probably about a minute to 2 minutes, but the action was very stylistic. Though not as strong as I hoped, another thing I'll get to here in a minute. The action sequences holds up. Like there's this one, which he did in the Hitman's Bodyguard, and he very well does it in this too, where there's this one shot of the characters just fighting and throwing stuff, punching each other, shooting at each other, but it's all one shot. And I always respect that. Though it may not look like it's actually one shot, like they actually shot it in one take, that's what it looks like. I did get confirmed by a commentary of one of the movies that did something similar. It wasn't any of these, but where they said that they shot it in one, but they did do retakes, and they did cut. But they shot it, and they edited it in a way where it looks like it's one shot. And I always respect that. Especially if it is, I'm not really sure about this movie, whether or not this was actually one shot, or even from the Hitman's Bodyguard, what happened in that film too. I like that. Where you just get these characters just fighting and shooting and throwing things, punching each other's lights out, all in one take, or so it seems. I really do appreciate that. Again, it goes back to the stylistic of how the action is. I like that about Patrick Hughes. I really do respect that. Again, it just goes to that very slick way of filmmaking that he does. The film had merits. It hit hard in some places. It definitely had some great moments. However, going back to the film stars, and as we go into the mixed, the chemistry between Woody Harrelson and Kevin Hart, it wasn't as strong, but I didn't hate it. I did get some chuckles out there, but it wasn't as strong as Reynolds and Jackson. It missed that spark. I didn't feel like there was much there in terms of comedy. Yes, I did get some chuckles, which is why I'm adding this into the mixed. I could have very well added this into the negatives, but I'm not going to lie. I did enjoy some of their moments, some of their chemistry. But again, it just wasn't as strong as Ryan Reynolds and Samuel L. Jackson. No offense to Woody Harrelson and Kevin Hart. I think they're great. I just didn't really feel it as strongly as I did with those other two. As a whole, I just didn't really feel like there was much there with their chemistry. And as I mentioned, going back to Patrick Hughes, the director, I love his style of filmmaking. There's no doubt about it. I really do like when he throws in action, what he does with the action scenes. He does great action when he wants to. And here starts the negatives. The action wasn't as strong as I wanted it to be. Now, this may be coming off from Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard, which we just got last year, who was also directed by Patrick Hughes. So I'm probably basing it on that a little bit and maybe not being fair, but it is what it is. Coming off of that movie, which had loads of action, this one, it just kind of lacked in it a little bit. Now, when the action was going on, hell yeah, I was cheering. But it just didn't do as much. There wasn't as much scenes. There wasn't as much explosions and as much shoot-em-ups and just all-out craziness that the Hitman films had. And again, I may sound like I'm being unfair, but I'm sorry, it is what it is. I just didn't really feel like the man from Toronto delivered on that front as much as I wanted it to. And I think a lot of that has to do with the rating of this. When I found out it was directed by Patrick Hughes, but then I found out that the rating was PG-13. I was like, okay, well, I'll watch it anyway. Hopefully that won't affect it. Unfortunately, I think it kind of does, because the Hitman's Bodyguard movies, which are rated R clearly, you see everything. I mean, you see action in its full glory on how it's supposed to. And that's what really messed up the Expendables 3 for me as well. Like, you had the first two, which wasn't directed by Patrick Hughes, and this wasn't really his fault, I don't think in this case, but that's what ruined the Expendables 3 for me as well. They put restraints whenever they create something that's in its full glory, and then you cut it back by making it more family-friendly, PG-13. Stop doing that. I mean, you already established that you're a great filmmaker, and that when you are giving material that is holding nothing back by rating something rated R, by rating your project R, then you fully shine, and it fully shows. But with this film, you just had to restrain yourself again. You had to put that PG-13 rating in there. No blood, no gore, no showing anybody's head explode. And that's what made the first two Expendables and the Hitman's Bodyguard movies, that's what made movies like that special. You gotta see it. I know that's my own sick and twisted way of saying it, but to put those restraints on there, it really does restrain it. So I think that had a lot to do with it. Plus, with the story department being weak, there wasn't really that much there. It's basically a case of mistaken identity. That's all you really get. And as the movie goes on, yeah, you have these cool action sequences and hooray. But still, it doesn't really help when your story is kind of limited to just one subject. It doesn't have anything where terrorists blow something up and you try to save people in time. It doesn't have anything of like a virus breaking out or this and that. It just showed so much potential, but there wasn't much there with story. So that's another thing that kind of downed this movie for me, degraded this movie for me. But make no mistake, I'm not saying that this is the most terrible film that I've ever seen. It did hold a lot of things back in my perspective. But again, it wasn't terrible. It did have its moments, but it could have been better. Film was enjoyable enough. Just don't expect too much and be on the fence. So, The Man from Toronto, have you seen it yet? What was your thoughts on it? Were you somebody that found enjoyment out of this? Are you somebody that holds this high up on your pedestal? Or are you somebody that just watched it and thought, yeah, it was alright, not really for me? Leave me a comment down below and give me your thoughts. Thank you so much, guys, as always, for watching this. I ask you to like, subscribe, comment, and share the Big Four. Make sure to hit that bell icon so you get notified and don't miss a thing. And I will see you on the next one. Peace.